Greetings, sphere beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. Welcome on Play. I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and this is the video Cyber Attack on Global Financial System Warning. Withdraw all your money from your bank account. So I make this video to prevent a world war, to prevent escalation, and to bring peace to the Ukraine, and to warn people that it's reported by several people that have predicted a cyber attack, which was also an exercise held in Israel. They hosted a cyber pandemic exercise simulating a cyber attack on the global financial system with 10 countries, the IMF, the World Bank, and the BIS. And also Klaus Schwab, what some people call Clown Schwab because of the "you will or nothing" quote prediction unquote. So that's something to be worried about, you could argue, to prevent that cyber attack on the global financial system. How else could people own nothing is also the question. So one Clown Schwab quote is, "The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack," unquote. And Clown Schwab talked about a, quote, "comprehensive cyber attack which would bring a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, and our society as a whole," unquote. And of course he was in the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. And the Bilderberg Group was founded by a former Nazi by the name of Prince Bernhard. More about it in previous broadcasts. So perhaps it's best to start with an intro that I've prepared. Or should I check this news article first? This is one of the latest news articles 10 hours ago. Middle East North Africa Financial Network reported Putin-Zelensky meeting. Putin-Zelensky meeting possible after, quote, "positive developments," unquote, in Russia-Ukraine negotiations. So I'll be reading that, but first let's start with the text-to-speech engine, some text that I've prepared of this article on sociable.co. The Sociable: Israel hosts cyber pandemic exercise simulating cyber attack on global financial system with 10 countries, IMF, World Bank, and BIS. Okay, let's just start reading.
Five ways you could end this war. 1. Surrender Zelensky. 2. Stop sanctioning and let Putin invade. 3. Putin pull back the troops, do not invade. 4. Turn Ukraine into a neutral zone. 5. Arm 40 million Ukrainians. Putin, Biden and Zelensky are Zionists that are possibly in on escalating the war as a pretense for an illegal premeditated cyber attack on the global financial system. Zelensky refused to turn Ukraine into a neutral zone. Israel.
I know I've covered that in a previous broadcast, and I've tried to find that article in which they claimed Zelensky is not willing to cooperate, but now we see that new meeting might take place. So I hope they can negotiate and bring peace to the Ukraine, of course, to avoid this, prevent this from escalating into a world war, mutually assured destruction, the earth splitting or spinning off axis. The earth is already wobbling. They've never set up that many nukes simultaneously before. So yeah, I think it's vital to de-escalate this.
Israel hosts cyber pandemic exercise simulating a cyber attack on global financial system with 10 countries, IMF, World Bank and BIS collective strength simulated attack on the financial sector is a continuation of global efforts to prepare the public and private sectors for a coming cyber pandemic that would wreak havoc over all of society. Perspective Tim Hinchcliffe 3 months ago. Israel's Ministry of Finance hosts a cyber pandemic exercise similar to Cyber Polygon, where 10 countries, the IMF, BIS, and the World Bank simulate a cyber attack on the global financial system. Held in Jerusalem on Thursday, the cybersecurity training exercise dubbed Collective Strength was aimed at increasing international cooperation that could help to minimize any potential damage to financial markets and banks, according to a Reuters exclusive. Participants included members of the International Monetary Fund, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, Tel Aviv's B Street Crisis Management Software Company, and Treasury officials from the nations of Austria, Germany, Israel, Italy, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, the United States. The cyber attack simulation was originally slated to take place at the Dubai World Expo, but according to Reuters, it was later moved to Israel due to the Omicron variant of COVID-19. A lack of cybersecurity has become a clear and immediate danger to our society worldwide, Klaus Schwab, Cyber Polygon 2021. Coincidentally, Dubai is where the World Economic Forum, WEF, held its Great Narrative meeting, where WEF founder Klaus Schwab called on fewer than 50 unelected globalists to craft a great narrative for humankind in November 2021.
So if the banks would be out of order, people can still buy stuff with cash of course. So theoretically they might pretend they can't do business anymore and all that, but in reality people can still choose to keep cash. And I don't know to what extent it's legal for a state or country to get rid of cash, to move to a cashless society, without having the tax-paying citizens vote over that, for example. Like they voted over Brexit. So that's one thing. Then people can still pay with cash. You could argue you don't really need electricity, lighting in the store, just cash register and money. And the other thing is they should fix the global financial system, the power supply, and the internet. And, well, if they pretend they can, then they're lying. They could replace parts if necessary. They could make an intranet like they have in Russia. So when the global internet goes away, then Russia still has their intranet, and we could make that perhaps in a week or something. Another idea would be somebody wrote it in the chat. I'll have to look it up. I'm searching now for the text. Okay, we'll read on. I'll search for the other possibility, but an intranet is one option all countries have. And they might claim they're prepared for cyber attack, but they're not. If they can take out the global financial system, the internet, and the power supply. Of course, the power supply must be disconnected from the internet completely. The power grid must be disconnected from the internet now, because it's very well possible a cyber attack will follow, and Britain and others have also warned about this, including Klaus Schwab, a comprehensive cyber attack which will bring a complete halt to the power supply transportation, hospital services, and society as a whole.
Before that, Schwab gave the opening remarks at the Cyber Polygon 2021 cybersecurity training exercise in July, a simulation similar to Collective Strength, where he announced that a lack of cybersecurity has become a clear and immediate danger to our society worldwide. A year prior, at Cyber Polygon 2020, the WIF founder warned, "We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to, the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole." The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack, he added. "We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to, the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole." Klaus Schwab, Cyber Polygon 2020. Yesterday's Collective Strength simulated attack on the financial sector is a continuation of global efforts to prepare the public and private sectors for a coming cyber pandemic that would wreak havoc over all of society.
So it was a comment in Dutch about building a raft of IPFS, Interplanetary File System, is a protocol and peer-to-peer network for storing and sharing data in a distributed file system. WTF Mark FTW wrote in the chats, and that the government has to stay away from that, was his idea about it. And the Ides of March is the 15th of March, and according to Wiki it was an important religious day in old Rome, and was known as a day on which debts were settled, 15th of March. And of course, after the global financial system is gone, all the debts are gone as well. So if this is premeditated, perhaps they've taken out large loans, they know they will be gone anyway, nullified, so to speak, and also people's savings will be completely gone. So legally the banks have to have 3% of that fiat currency. 97% of fiat currency is fake, and basically it would just be gone after that. And of course crypto would be gone as well when the internet is gone and the power supply is gone. Also, if there would be an EMP or nuclear attack, which would also lead to meltdowns and flooding, because they attack the dikes, and also the airports are nuclear targets. So people can prepare, and it's best to prepare for the worst, go for the best. So then it's best to have a place outside of big cities, or a shelter underground, bomb shelter. Loads of storable food, but the most important thing is water. People can survive about 3 days without water and a month without food. People can still get tap water. After the power supply is gone, the tap water pumps won't get electricity anymore. So then people will not be able to get tap water anymore. So that's one thing people can store. There are videos showing how to do that on YouTube. So water is number one. Or a radiological water filter or normal water filter, to also be able to filter rainwater, because the water supply is limited. People need loads of water really, and if people are home quarantined or whatever, then it may be hard to get water when electrical pumps of the tap water supply are not working. So these two things, people can buy loads of storable food and they'll get through that anyway. Also, if nothing happens, and people can always, after withdrawing the money, deposit it back into a bank account. If it doesn't happen, hopefully it doesn't happen, I hope that they implement one of these 5 measures that I've mentioned to prevent a world war, de-escalate the war to bring peace to Ukraine. I think that's what most people by far would like to see. They don't want to see a world war, mutually assured destruction. War, what is it good for? Absolutely money. So some people make money and they banks lend that money to countries under the condition that the vanquished pay the debt. No, the victor pays the debt of the vanquished is the condition under which they loan money. So, that must also be forbidden. There must be a law against that, so that we don't get perpetual wars, but perpetual universal peace.
This is the first time that such a simulation is conducted. With this vast amount of participants and such extreme financial cyber scenarios, Israel's head of financial innovation and international engagement, Rahav Shalom Revivo, wrote on LinkedIn. All cooperating and collaborating together in order to maintain the resilience and stability of the financial ecosystem, she added. The language coming from Revivo mirrors that of Schwab's message of resiliency and stability when he called for a great reset of society and the global economy in June 2020. The World Economic Forum has been exceptionally prophetic in preparing for crises just before they happen. For example, just a few months before the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak, the WIF, along with the Johns Hopkins and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, held a fake pandemic exercise on October 18, 2019 called Event 201, which specifically simulated a coronavirus pandemic to gauge global preparedness. Many scenarios coming out of Event 201 became reality in 2020, including government lockdowns, social media censorship, global economic crashes, and societal upheaval, all ingredients being necessary to usher in a great reset.
Some call it the Greta reset, but there are over 1 million viruses, so chances that they pick the correct virus for the pandemic exercise, coronavirus or Event 201, are less than 1 in 1 million. That's why many people already think, hey, it's a scamdemic, pandemic.
And in the same style as the Event 201 simulation, yesterday's collective strength simulation also included mock news reports, this time about a scenario that caused chaos in global markets and a run on banks, according to Reuters. A cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and farther than any biological virus, World Economic Forum. The unelected global elites have been saying for years that a cyber pandemic is not a question of if, but when. According to the WIF, COVID-19 was known as an anticipated risk, and so is its digital equivalent. What's more, a cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and farther than any biological virus. Its reproductive rate would be around 10 times greater than what we've experienced with the coronavirus. Discussions from last year's Cyber Polygon exercise centered around the globalists' continued call for public-private collaborations, the adoption of digital identity schemes, and the desire to censor misinformation that went against authoritative messaging. This year's Cyber Polygon 2021 concluded with discussions paving a path towards a greater centralization of power and surveillance that furthers the Great Reset agenda of the global economy and all societal structures. They included a desire to immunize the Internet, demonize cryptocurrencies, and prop up centralized systems of governance through a closer merger of corporations and states, public-private partnerships.
So I'll add the links to the description if they're not added yet. And then we can move on to another article. Let's read that article with the date of today on it on menafn.com.
Putin-Zelensky meeting possible after positive developments in Russia. Putin-Zelensky meeting possible after positive developments in Russia-Ukraine negotiations. Date: March 12, 2022, 2:57 and 19 seconds AM. Share on Facebook. Tweet on Twitter, Monafnians. By Teach Sharma. New Delhi, March 12. A meeting between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Ukrainian counterpart Vladimir Zelensky is conceptually possible but under certain conditions, Russian Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov said in Moscow on Friday. The Kremlin spokesman however made it clear that the negotiators should first do their job before the meeting. Russia's position is no secret, it has been formulated and brought to the attention of Ukrainian negotiators. We are waiting to receive their clarifications, the Russian media quoted Peskov as saying. While Peskov was briefing the media about the latest developments, Putin told Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko in a meeting at the Kremlin that there are certain positive developments in the ongoing negotiations with Ukraine and Belarus, 3 rounds of which have already taken place. I will certainly inform you about the situation in the Ukrainian direction and, above all, about how the negotiations are going now, which are now being held almost on a daily basis. There are certain positive developments there, as our negotiators reported to me. I will tell about all this in more detail, the Russian president told Lukashenko. While Turkey, buoyed by the talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers in Antalya on Thursday, has indicated playing a role in hosting Putin-Zelensky meeting in future, top diplomats from Ukraine said they are negotiating with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's office on organizing a meeting between the two heads of the state. It was reported by the media in Kiev that, in an interview with the German TV channel ARD, deputy head of the Ukrainian president's office Igor Zovkov also did not rule out discussions on a possible neutral status of Ukraine. The only serious negotiations that can be conducted with the Russians are possible at the presidential level. My president is ready for this. International partners should help us organize such a meeting. We are negotiating with the German Chancellor to organize such a meeting, Zovkov was reported as saying. Following talks with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Ivanovich Kuleba in Antalya on Thursday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had said Moscow wants to have a serious conversation on the Belarusian negotiation platform. I think that everyone is well aware that Russian President Vladimir Putin never refuses contacts. We only want these contacts to be organized not for their own sake, but in order to fix specific agreements. Today this topic was touched upon. I reminded D.I. Kuleba that we are always in favor of meeting if it helps to solve the problem, Lavrov said after the meeting. Moscow has once again stated that it wants Ukraine to be neutral, without any militarization and is ready to discuss guarantees for the security of the Ukrainian state, together with guarantees for the security of European countries and the security of Russia. The content is being carried under an arrangement with IndianRadio.com. IndianRadio.
That was MinaFN.com, and then we can switch to Yahoo Finance. Zelensky, this is from 1 day ago, Zelensky, Ukraine has, quote, reached a strategic turning point, quote, in war with Russia. In a video released by the Ukrainian government, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the country's war with Russia had, quote, reached a strategic turning point, quote, and that his country was moving toward, quote, victory, unquote. Next, we have some older articles in relation to neutrality, because I was searching the article that claimed that Volodymyr Zelensky refused to turn Ukraine into a neutral country, basically like Switzerland, neutral status for Ukraine. So this is telesurenglish.net. teleSUR HD, Ukraine and Russia may discuss ceasefire and neutral status. Published 26th of February 2022. Next we have Fundamental solution lies in neutral status of Ukraine. News.cgtn.com, February 28th. Therefore, an ideal solution for the current crisis would be for the Ukraine to maintain a neutral status by not joining any military alliance, which would help develop good relations with the US and Europe while maintaining friendly relations with Russia. In this situation, Ukraine could keep a peaceful and constructive environment and further develop its economy. Russia can feel safe on its western border, and Europe-Russia trade and energy cooperation can grow in peace, thereby leading to a balanced and sustainable security landscape for Europe. Next. Ukraine ready for talks with Russia on neutral status. Caspian.news.com, February 25th, 2022. President Zelensky refused American help to evacuate, saying, "The fight is here," unquote. The AP reported, citing a senior American intelligence official with direct knowledge of the conversation. Well, I'm for letting people that want to flee. They don't want to fight, and to help with the evacuation to Russia or Europe, wherever they want to go, to a safe place until this blows over. Bloomberg.com, US sanctions Putin key aids as Russian forces encircle Kiev. Vexille signaled support for negotiations in call with Putin. Kiev mayor says Russian forces already in the capital. 25th of February. So that also mentioned neutrality. The Russian president said earlier he's ready to authorize negotiations with Ukraine about the country adopting a quote neutral quote status. It also remains to be seen what the premise of the discussions would be and how each side would define what neutrality means. And then we have an OANN.com article, One American News Network, Ukraine ready for talks with Russia on neutral status, official. It was also February 25th. Reuters. Neutral Ukraine, a non-starter in Russia peace talks. AsiaTimes.com. Putin's call for, quote, denazification, unquote, of Ukraine suggests he envisages installation of a pro-Moscow regime in exchange for a ceasefire. March 1st, 2022. I covered this in another broadcast. Brace for Russian cyber attacks as Ukraine crisis deepens, Britain says. January 28, 2022. London. January 28, Reuters. Britain warned big business on Friday to bolster defenses against possible Russian cyber attacks, as Western fears deepened that President Vladimir Putin would order his troops to annex another part of Ukraine. GulfNews.com Russia-Ukraine crisis updates. US imposes new sanctions on Russian oligarchs, leaders and elites. The free world is coming together to confront Putin, says Biden, March 12, 2022. That's this part, so let's read this.
U.S. imposes new sanctions on Russian oligarchs, leaders and elites. The United States on Friday imposed sanctions on more Russian oligarchs, leaders and elites, targeting members of the lower house of parliament and billionaire Viktor Vexille, among others, as Washington increases pressure on Russia over its attack on Ukraine. Those hit with sanctions on Friday include 10 people comprising VTB Bank's board, 12 members of the Duma and family members of Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, the U.S. Treasury Department said in a statement. The Treasury accused those targeted of having supported Russian President Vladimir Putin's attack on Ukraine. Treasury continues to hold Russian officials to account for enabling Putin's unjustified and unprovoked war, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in the statement.
Okay, that reminds me of a cartoon, Vexille. Vexille is a 2007 Japanese CGI anime film written, directed, and edited by blah blah blah. Wikipedia. Plot. Some people think this could be predictive programming, or an attempt to program people to respond in a certain manner when something happens. So, the name was what? Vexille. Victor Vexille. And this is Vexille. What is it? Cartoon. CGI anime film. So let's read that plot.
By the 2060s, robotics technology has become extremely advanced, including cybernetics. World opinion begins to turn against robotics, leading to the UN declaring a unilateral ban on further research in 2067. Japan, being home to robotics pioneer Daiwa Heavy Industries, strongly protests this ban, but is unable to prevent its passage. In protest, Japan withdraws from international politics. All foreigners are deported, and further immigration is prohibited. In addition, the RACE network is constructed, 270 offshore installations that cover Japan with an energy field, nullifying all communication with the outside world and making satellite surveillance impossible. Trade and diplomacy continues, but Japan vanishes from the world scene. 10 years later, the United States Navy Special Warfare Unit SWORD is trying to trap a Japanese informant for Daiwa in Colorado. The instigator, Saito, escapes by cutting off his own leg. Analysis shows the leg is made of biometal. SWORD suspects that Japan has concealed extensive development of banned technologies. They embark on an unapproved scheme to infiltrate Japan and to find out the frequency of the RACE network, enabling SWORD to gather intelligence on the country. Although the agents successfully entered Japan, they are detected by security forces before they can transmit their data. Vexille is the sole sword agent to evade capture, and only her lover Leon survives to be taken to Daewa's headquarters. Vexille awakens to find Tokyo is now a shanty town ruled by Daewa. A small resistance movement opposes the company, and uses Vexille's transmitter to successfully transmit the distortion frequency. Maria, the head of the resistance, details the 10 years of secrecy while Sword studies Japan in shocked horror. The islands are a lifeless wasteland. In 2067, an unknown disease struck Japan and was countered by an experimental vaccine. In actuality, the disease was created by Daewa and the vaccine was used as an excuse for Daewa to begin testing experimental nanotechnology. Every Japanese citizen was converted into a form of synthetic life, but there were unforeseen side effects. The conversion was imperfect, resulting in the infected humans losing their free will and becoming just lifelike machines.
I forgot what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, it reminds me of transhumanism. So, different people may have different meanings for the word. Different people may have different meanings for the word transsexual. And speech errors are made with synthetic telepathy machines, so I don't do it deliberately. It's done to play me out against the global population that some of us want to exterminate, which is also clear from these 50 shocking population reduction quotes I covered on the Future channel on YouTube, and their $1 million Georgia Guidestones. More about it in my videos on other channels.
Some of the nanotech went amok, creating the Jags, giant whirling constructs of semi-sentient metal that prowl the wilderness. The Jags destroyed all of Japan, save Tokyo, which is protected by an inedible wall of ceramic. The resistance plans to draw the Jags along a service bridge to Daewa's corporate headquarters, which now stands in the middle of Tokyo Bay. Vexille volunteers her assistance, and that of her flight-capable armor. However, though Vexille and Maria succeed in drawing the Jags to the end of the service bridge, the bridge has been detached from the headquarters, the Jags fall into the sea, and Vexille and Maria are captured. They are taken to Kisaragi, the master of Daewa, who boasts that his research is nearly complete, and as he needs more test subjects, he is going to invade America. Vexille attacks him with a hidden knife, revealing that his blood is still human. He has not used the process himself. Saito then strangles him. The town council forces the ceramic gates open, destroying Tokyo and enabling the Jags to enter Daewa's headquarters. Kisaragi, having somehow survived, shoots Saito and escapes with his research. The underling then releases Vexille and Maria before succumbing to his wounds. Vexille pursues Kisaragi while Maria frees Leon, who shows concern for Vexille, angering Maria. Thus, when Vexille prevents Kisaragi's escape in a helicopter, Maria grabs him and holds them together as a Jag devours them. Vexille and Leon are rescued by a Sword helicopter just as Daewa headquarters collapses into the bay, along with every Jag in Japan. As Vexille and Leon are flown from a now completely lifeless Japan, Vexille comments that humanity's spirit can never be taken away.
Okay, great, yeah. Awesome cartoon, so I advise everybody to watch that cartoon. Hopefully that prevents that type of scenario from unfolding in reality rather than bring it about. So where were we? Then we have Politico.eu. Vladimir Putin, war criminal, the Russian leader, has a long record in humanity. Putin has funded, promoted, supplied, and aided and abetted the Russian and pro-Russian terrorists in eastern Ukraine. Thus far, that war has taken 10,000 lives. It was Putin's proxies who shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 on July 17, 2014, killing 298 innocent people aboard. Russia's ruthless bombing of Syria's civilian population and targets has been termed criminal by various Western leaders and human rights organizations, prompting U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power to ask her Russian counterpart, quote, "Is there no act of barbarism against civilians, no execution of a child that gets under your skin, that just creeps you out a little bit? Is there nothing you will not lie about or justify?" Quote. During Putin's years in office, a series of Russian Democrats, journalists and opposition leaders have been killed in mysterious circumstances, the most prominent being Alexander Litvinenko, Anna Politkovskaya, Boris Nemtsov, Sergei Magnitsky, Natalia Estemirova, Sergei Yushchenko, Paul Klepnikov, Stanislav Markelov, and Anastasia Baburova. Novichok, Russian for new boy, is a series of binary chemical weapons developed by the Soviet Union and Russia between 1971 and 1993. They were designed as part of a Soviet program codenamed Folians. Population reduction is called, quote, population control, quote, by the, quote, establishment, unquote. I have this big RTF file, documents with millions of chat remarks that contains everything, but it takes very long to load. I just use WordPad, and then I can copy the emojis as well. I use it for chats. Putin, Ukraine, and international law. Dr. Taras Kusio, Senior Fellow, CS University of Alberta, talk given to the University of Toronto, 20th March 2017. Explanations for the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Russia is portrayed as the victim. Apologia for land grab of Crimea. The Donbass is not a, quote, civil war, unquote. Putin is a warmonger and has violated international law. 1. Putin has launched 4, quote, small victorious wars, quote, in Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, and Syria. 2. Committed massive war crimes in Chechnya, Donbass, and Syria. 3. Violation of UN Charter, OSCE, and many other international laws and treaties. Violated 1994 Budapest Memorandum, to which Russia was a signatory. And 5. Violated 1997 Ukraine-Russia Interstate Treaty. So that's why I argue they should arrest Novichok, Putin, the war criminal, and not sanction the innocent civilians on the Russian side or the American, NATO, Europe side, and keep that to a minimum, also de-escalate, so keep sanctions to a minimum. And I hope that Putin says, well, I didn't expect this reaction. I think it's exaggerated, but avoiding a world war and de-escalating this is more important. It's not worth it. And that's why it's also so important that they're now sanctioning the, what they call, oligarchs. Oligarch, a member of a small government faction, a member of an oligarchy, one of a few holding political power, a member of an oligarchy, one of the rulers in an oligarchical government. Oligarchy is a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. These people may or may not be distinguished by one or several characteristics such as nobility, fame, wealth, education, or corporate, religious, political, or military control. Wikipedia. CIA Veteran Edited Encyclopedia. Alright, People can check this on socialglobalstudies.com. The international laws Putin has already violated. And what else does it say? International dimensions. National identity is at the root of the crisis. It's not the economy, stupid. Ukrainophobia, Western and Zionist conspiracies and crime. Russian great power nationalist attitudes towards Ukraine, what Russians believe. I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. Unpredictable Putin is now faced by an even more unpredictable Trump. Network 1976. Democratic, de-Sovietized Ukraine as a threat to Putin's authoritarian neo-Soviet Russia. Well, some would think enough is enough. Bring peace to the Ukraine and prevent a world war by whatever means necessary. Prevent global genocide. The latest Russia-Ukraine war news live updates. The Wall Street Journal 43 minutes ago. Russian offensive widens as US imposes new trade sanctions. WTVR CBS 6 19 hours ago. Ukraine-Russia war live updates. New York Times 36 minutes ago. Russia invades Ukraine live updates. CNN. Well, very loud, and that changes because I think this was loaded a couple of hours ago. Russia intensifies strikes around Kiev as it warns US against arming Ukraine. CNN 21 minutes ago. Putin's pre-war moves against US tech giants laid groundwork for a crackdown on free expression. The Washington Post 7 hours ago. All freedom of speech means nothing if you just can't speak the truth from the song No Blood for Oil by Cocoa Tea. Well, no blood for soil, think about it. It doesn't make sense. Russian agents threaten Google, Apple representatives with prison time, report Fox Business 3 hours ago. Numerous American big tech companies based in the US have taken disciplinary action against Russia.
Microsoft is suspending the sale of products and services in Russia. They're also helping.
Turn off the audio. I'm trying to pause this. Is there no pause on this? Foxbusiness.com. Anyway, it looks alright. Russian agents are reportedly targeting Google and Apple employees based in the country with prison time. Russian agents. And they have employees in Russia. Google and Apple. Agents apparently appeared at the door of a Google executive's home in Moscow and demanded that he remove an app from its Google Play Store at the request of Russian President Vladimir Putin, the Washington Post reported. An Apple representative in Moscow experienced similar threats, sources told Post. Police officer checked his smartphone, during a patrol at an entry gate at the Embassy of Ukraine building in Moscow, Russia on Thursday, February 24, 2022. Numerous American big tech companies based in the US have taken disciplinary action against Russia since Putin invaded Ukraine on February 24th. Yeah, well, I call it a cancer cell phone because the reproducible blood test we can do, I advise people not to do it themselves, there are videos of it online, shows that people can test their blood with a microscope, put some blood drop under the microscope and people see the swimming red blood cells, and then when they use a cancer cell phone for 90 seconds and then do the test again, they can see the lumping red blood cells, a symptom known to occurs as rouleaux, rolls of coins, because that's what it looks like, and perhaps also because some people are making a lot of money with this. But the official medical term is rouleau. And then they claim it goes away after a while, but that's not true if people are chronically exposed, and there are thousands of studies. I'm not going into that in this broadcast. But I have in previous broadcasts, so check them out on my various channels. Perfect Society, Try Something Vegetarian, Future channel on YouTube, and a couple of others. Numerous American big tech companies based in the US have taken disciplinary action against Russia since Putin invaded Ukraine on February 24th, etc. So they are important talks, but we shouldn't get our hopes up. No hope in positive developments. We read this already. Well, I really hope that they can make an agreement to freeze this situation and de-escalate it, to bring peace to the Ukraine, and prevent a world war, and prevent that cyber attack. You could argue it would be a war crime, because Klaus Schwab also warned that it would be worse than COVID-19 pandemic or something. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. So he didn't really say that it would kill more people than COVID-19, which has killed about 6 million people thus far. I've covered that date when it crossed the 6 million number. We can check on worldometers. For example, worldometers.info. There you can see these updated numbers. But of course it would when the global financial system is gone and internet is gone, global internet, and the power supply. I wonder to what extent they can do that worldwide, or if that's impossible. It would only affect Europe, US, Russia, Ukraine. Anyway, it's clear millions and millions of people, innocent civilians, would die, so it would be a weapon with an indiscriminate effect, such as cyber attacks and acts of war. And of course they can repair it. It's easier than making all kinds of new things, a new type of internet, etc. And there are people that have financial interests, others that want to reduce the global population that should be arrested if they have decided to commit genocide. And their job, if the government officials working for the government, is to protect and serve the taxpayers that have paid taxpayer money. That have paid their money to be protected and served, of course, and any deviation from that is treason. crime against humanity, genocide. And of course, there could be tribunals again, where the criminals are convicted if there would be a world war or such a cyber attack. Which must be prevented by any means necessary. So because millions of innocent civilians would die, I argue it is a war crime. And I've covered war crime as well. War crime. Didn't I read that already in this broadcast? So, war crimes are defined in the statutes. Let's read this wiki article now then.
A war crime is a violation of the laws of war that gives rise to individual criminal responsibility for actions by the combatants, such as intentionally killing civilians or intentionally killing prisoners of war, torture, taking hostages, unnecessarily destroying civilian property, deception by perfidy, wartime sexual violence, pillaging, the conscription of children in the military, committing genocide or ethnic cleansing, the granting of no quarter despite surrender, and flouting the legal distinctions of proportionality and military necessity. 1. The formal concept of war crimes emerged from the codification of the customary international law that applied to warfare between sovereign states, such as the Lieber Code, 1863, of the Union Army in the American Civil War and the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 for international war. 1. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the war crime trials of the leaders of the Axis powers established the Nuremberg principles of law, such as the fact that international criminal law defines what is a war crime. In 1949, the Geneva Conventions legally defined new war crimes and established that states could exercise universal jurisdiction over war criminals. 1. In the late 20th century and early 21st century, international courts extrapolated and defined additional categories of war crimes applicable to a civil war. Leipzig Trials main article, Leipzig War Crimes Trials. Just after WWI, the world governments started to try and systematically create a code for how war crimes would be defined. Their first outline of the law was Instructions for the Government of Armies of the United States in the Field, also known as the Lieber Code. 8. A small number of German military personnel of the First World War were tried in 1921 by the German Supreme Court for alleged war crimes. London Charter, Nuremberg Trials. London Charter, Nuremberg Trials. 1945 main articles, London Charter of the International Military Tribunal and Nuremberg Trials. The modern concept of war crime was further developed under the auspices of the Nuremberg Trials based on the definition in the London Charter that was published on August 8, 1945. Also see Nuremberg Principles. Along with war crimes, the Charter also defined crimes against peace and crimes against humanity, which are often committed during wars and in concert with war crimes. International Military Tribunal for the Far East. 1946 main article, International Military Tribunal for the Far East, also known as the Tokyo Trial, the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal, or simply as the Tribunal. It was convened on May 3, 1946, to try the leaders of the Empire of Japan for three types of crimes: Class A, crimes against peace; Class B, war crimes; and Class C, crimes against humanity, committed during World War II. International Criminal Court 2002. Bodies of some of the hundreds of Vietnamese villagers who were killed by U.S. soldiers during the My Lai massacre on July 1, 2002, the International Criminal Court, a TRIA-based court located in The Hague, came into being for the prosecution of war crimes committed on or after that date. Several nations, most notably the United States, China, Russia, and Israel, have criticized the court. The United States still participates as an observer. Article 12 of the Rome Statute provides jurisdiction over the citizens of non-contracting states if they are accused of committing crimes in the territory of one of the state parties. 9. War crimes are defined in the statute that established the International Criminal Court, which includes grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions, such as willful killing, or causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health, torture or inhumane treatment, unlawful wanton destruction or appropriation of property, forcing a prisoner of war to serve in the forces of a hostile power, depriving a prisoner of war of a fair trial, unlawful deportation, confinement or transfer, taking hostages, directing attacks against civilians. Bodo League massacre during the Korean War in 1950, directing attacks against humanitarian workers or UN peacekeepers, killing a surrendered combatant, misusing a flag of truce, settlement of occupied territory, deportation of inhabitants of occupied territory, using poison weapons, using civilians as shields, using child soldiers, firing upon a combat medic with clear insignia. The following acts as part of a non-international conflict: murder, cruel or degrading treatment and torture, directing attacks against civilians, humanitarian workers or UN peacekeepers. The following acts as part of an international conflict: civilians killed in shelling in eastern Ukraine. According to the HRW report, the use of indiscriminate rockets in populated areas violates international humanitarian law, or the laws of war, and may amount to war crimes. 10. Taking hostages, summary execution, pillage, rape, sexual slavery, forced prostitution or forced pregnancy. However, the court only has jurisdiction over these crimes where they are part of a plan or policy or as part of a large-scale commission of such crimes. 11. Prominent indictees. Main articles: List of war crimes and list of people indicted in the International Criminal Court. Heads of state and government. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, wanted by the ICC for war crimes and crimes against humanity. 2013 Shabak protests demanding the death penalty for the war criminals of the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. To date, the present and former heads of state and heads of government that have been charged with war crimes include German Gross Admiral and President Karl Donitz and Japanese Prime Ministers and Generals Heideki Tojo and Kuniaki Koizo in the aftermath of World War II. Former Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic was brought to trial, charges with genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes in 3 republics. This pertained to superior responsibility for the Bosnia and Croatia indictments, and individual responsibility for the Kosovo indictment. He was acquitted, however, as he died in custody in 2006, before the trial could be concluded. 12. Former Liberian President Charles G. Taylor was also brought to The Hague charged with war crimes. His trial stretched from 2007 to March 2011. He was convicted in April 2012 of aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. 13-14. Former Bosnian Serb President Radovan Karadzic was arrested in Belgrade on July 18, 2008, and brought before Belgrade's War Crimes Court a few days after. He was extradited to the Netherlands, and is currently in The Hague, in the custody of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. The trial began in 2010. On March 24, 2016, he was found guilty of genocide in Srebrenica, war crimes and crimes against humanity, 10 of the 11 charges in total, and sentenced to 40 years imprisonment. 15-16, he was sentenced to life on appeal. 17. Omar al-Bashir, former head of state of Sudan, is charged with 3 counts of genocide, crimes against humanity and other war crimes regarding the war in the Darfur region of Sudan. 18-19. Former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was indicted for allegedly ordering the killings of protesters and civilians and crimes against humanity, during the 2011 Libyan civil war. However, He was killed in October 2011 before he could stand trial. Citation needed. Prominent indictees. Other Yashijiro Uematsu, a general in the Imperial Japanese Army. Sanshiro Itagaki, War Minister of the Empire of Japan. Hermann Göring, Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe. Ernst Kaltenbrunner and Adolf Eichmann, high-ranking members of the SS. Wilhelm Keitel, Generalfeldmarschall, head of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. Erich Raeder, Großadmiral, Commander-in-Chief of the Kriegsmarine. Albert Speer, Minister of Armaments and War Production in Nazi Germany 1942-45. William Calley, former U.S. Army officer found guilty of murder for his role in the My Lai massacre. General Tika Khan, aka Butcher of Bengal, was a notorious Pakistan Army general known for his war crimes in Bangladesh during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. 20 Ali Hussain Abd al-Majid al-Tikriti, more commonly known by his nickname Chemical Ali, executed by post-Ba'athist Iraq for his leadership of the gassing of Kurdish villages during the Iran-Iraq War, also governor of illegally occupied Kuwait during the First Gulf War. Ratko Mladic, indicted for genocide amongst other violations of humanitarian law during the Bosnian War. He was captured in Serbia in May 2011 and was extradited to face trial in The Hague, wherein he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. 21 Joseph Kony, leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, guerrilla group which used to operate in Uganda. Main articles, list of war crimes and list of people indicted in the International Criminal Court. Wiki/war_crime. Antiwar.com. News updated March 12, 2022, 3:07 p.m. EST. Risking nuclear war, calls grow for no-fly zone. Transpartisan group hits back at calls for no-fly zone over Ukraine. Biden to strip Russia's trade status, ban more imports. Biden signs $1.5 trillion bill, includes $13.6 billion for Ukraine and Pentagon. U.S. Russian jets firing from their own airspace. Russia strikes near Ukraine's capital, Musk reported hit. Ukrainian official, Israel's Bennett told Zelensky to take Putin's deal. Iran nuclear talks on hold as U.S. gets cold feet. Already fragile JCPOA talks paused over Russian demands.
So, people can still store water, buy storable food, take the money off the bank before a possible cyber attack occurs. They can always put it back in the bank. Oh, I want to pause this one. This one's good. That's better. And besides that, people can also still get protection, helmets and stuff. Bulletproof vest in case of an invasion and the like. And gas by fossil fuels, 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 by fossil fuels. Because they will skyrocket, prices will skyrocket. Because of the carbon tax scam of Al Gore paid by George Soros. More about it in my previous broadcast as well. And so buy natural gas and cancer gasoline, but don't breathe that in basically. No dioxin. Also, because it's possible they'll turn off the gas, or the gas heating won't work anymore if the power supply is gone and the thermostat is gone. So then another idea is having these bioethanol burners that can be pretty big and used as heaters as well. Yeah, and people can also buy gold and silver. They've gold, basically gold bullion. They don't do business in dollars or in crypto. Big old boys use gold bullion, basically. So, the big bankers hopefully help to create peace as well, to take a shortcut to a perfect society in which maximum fulfillment is bestowed upon all of us, using this wonderful new technology, synthetic telepathy, AI, robots, etc., time-traveling synthetic telepathy machine. And it's still learning from its mistakes, so hopefully one day we will be able to control factors that control aging. I think the answer is not synthetic mRNA and nanobots that cause brain bleedings and heart attacks, but the time-traveling synthetic telepathy machine scalar technology, because everything is energy. So we are energy as well. Molecules, air molecules, for example, neutrons, protons, and electrons, protons and protons. So, carbon atom, 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons, I think. And so that means we're made out of energy. You could argue we're light beings, some argue. And all it takes to become eternal is learn how to channel the energy, mastering the channeling of the energy. Because everything is energy, including time, according to some scientists. Alright, so let's see if I can get back to the original. Here's another picture I wanted to show. Yes. So it's also to prevent mutually assured destruction and a world war. And I hope they have an agreement that makes sense for everyone involved, de-escalate this, and bring peace to the world instead of a world war. Preventing bleed curing. Some would say they're Jesuit coadjutors, and some people think they've planned it, so I'm not gonna make an agreement to avoid that cyber attack on the global financial system, to impose a cashless society and totalitarian New World Order, but you could argue they're conspiracy theorists, so where is their evidence? And if so, how could we prevent it then? So, it is good to point out things that are bad or evil people that are a threat to humanity, but it's best to come up with how to do it better, to come up with solutions, because otherwise, if you don't offer them another solution, then it will happen anyway. People can't do anything unless they get the idea first to do it. For example, create universal peace, bring peace to the Ukraine, to take the me seriously with all these weapons of self-destruction surrounding us all. So disarm, 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 the ultimate mega. Shut down. Alright, so thank you all for watching. See you next time on Play, my new channel on YouTube. Play with the pinball as a logo, basically. It's a pinball machine. And it, I mean, well, it has several meanings, so I thought it's just came to me. That will be my new YouTube channel. So, universal peace now. Kiss for single ladies who'd love one, and not for the ones who wouldn't. And people can always Skype me, ProLogic999, so I'm hoping to get more contact with YouTubers, people out there, where we will broadcast together for this or another platform. And you have to do everything we can to create a perfect society in which we all live happily eternally. Stay proactive rather than reactive, and do healing things also. Let their medicine be their food and their food be their medicine. Hippocrates quote, I think. So, see you all next time on Play on YouTube. I'm Ulrich Hoffmann. May peace be with you all. Over and out.